here. I guess this is an impromptu watch party here. As you guys know, all the news is happening all over the place. I was gonna still try and look into what's happening here with the shooting over in Utah of political activist, conservative activist Charlie Kirk. I'm just kind of checking on CNN to see as this is still going. There was also a shooting in Colorado all around the same time. I'm not sure how many folks are talking about that, but this is a little more impromptu. I'm just going to see what's happening. Obviously, I don't have a bunch of information outside of what is we've seen and already heard. So I just wanted to kind of
Maybe
watch with
opposed
you guys.
with or
Anyone who
not
maybe
agree
doesn't
with
have,
politically. We can't treat them as
excuse me, anyone who doesn't have an opportunity to see it themselves, maybe you can watch it here with me. Um, but let's follow this together as this develops because they still don't not sure of the condition here
for
of
those of
this.
us, those in the public eye and those holding public office. And I'm not placing any blame on this specific issue, but we need to stop referring to those on the other side of us as evil, or ascribing motives that just aren't deserved. And we need to
So Jeff Flake is sitting there. He's a former Arizona representative, a Republican, talking about the cautiousness we need to take when it comes to things like this, how we talk about each other, calling each other evil, saying the ramping up of violence. There was a guest on before, as I was about to sign in here, that was talking about how we may apparently be irreparably broken as a country because now look and what we've gotten ourselves into. So that's where we stand. I know a lot of people are having their opinions and from left to right and up and down. I just wanted to at least have this be a spot where people then say what they say and people respond to it as they may. And I think it's worth it to give hmm, apparently here, let's see, there's some development.
No longer with us. Melania, and my sympathies go out to his beautiful wife, Erica, and family. Charlie, we love you. So again, President Trump telling us at this hour that Charlie Kirk has died. Kirk was shot at a event at Utah Valley University earlier today, shortly after noon, according to the university. There was a single shot that rang out. He was shot in the neck. And now the president of the United States, someone that Charlie Kirk was close to, is reporting that he has died. I want to bring in Kristen Holmes. She is live for us at the White House. Again, Kristen, we're of course mourning Charlie Kirk. This is a man who, he was 31 years old. He had two very small children, 3 and 1 ages, I believe. He is someone who was very close to the president of the United States, close to the Trump family, someone who played a critical role if you talk to people around the president, in the president winning his second term. What are you hearing from those close to us? We, of course, read the statement that just came through from President Trump.
It's a very somber mood here. People are very upset. It's not just at the White House, it's really among Republicans as a whole. The Republican Party has become the party of Trump, the MAGA movement, and Charlie Kirk was really at the heart of all of that. He is credited with a huge portion of Trump's win in 2024. He was on the ground. He created an entire system to get young voters out and excited and enthusiastic about Trump. And it's not just as though he was some kind of outside influencer. He was very close to the president himself. I know specific examples of times that the two of them went back and forth over various issues. When Charlie thought something was important to the MAGA base, he brought it to the president's attention. There are some people who believe that Charlie had his finger on the pulse of Trump's base more than even some of his own cabinet officials. He had a huge following and, again, was so close to the family, to President Trump himself. And one of the things, I continue to bring up is the fact that there was a lot of conversation during the transition as to potentially making Charlie Kirk part of the administration. But the ultimate decision was that he was more influential, had more power outside of being in a government position. He had been in Washington a number of times. He had been here with his family. He went to swearing-ins of numerous officials because he was so close to those officials. He had direct lines to almost, if not all, cabinet secretaries. I can tell you a number of them spoke to him personally. He was incredibly powerful and influential within this administration. And it feels from those that I'm talking to as though they've lost a member of their team. It is really critical to point out here just how important he was to the election, but also to President Trump. I had one person tell me that Trump considered him to be like family. And that's likely why you're seeing Trump as the one who is announcing his passing, not his family. All of this was done in conjunction. They've been in constant touch with the family, with Charlie's team, getting updates, trying to figure out what exactly happened on the ground. Now, no indication, no word if President Trump is actually going to also make a statement other than this Truth Social post. I know that they are in touch still with everyone close to Charlie's family, with his team at Turning Point, with the team around him, just trying to make sense of what happened. But I will tell you, I talked to, again, a number of officials within the administration who are close to President Trump who just can't wrap their head around what happened earlier today.
Of course they can't. Kristen Holmes, stand by for us as we continue to cover this story. I want to bring back our Scott Jennings. Scott, first of all, I'm sorry for your loss. I know this is somebody that you knew. What are your reflections on his life, his legacy in this moment?
Well, Charlie was one of the most unique and special people in the conservative movement today. What he was able to build, the people he was able to organize, was just so large and powerful. He was able to convince people to get involved in politics that might not have otherwise done so. And you look at what he did on these campuses and these public events, thousands of people were showing up, not for a rock concert, not for a sporting event, but for American politics. He inspired.
So that's for the people who knew him and liked him. It's one of those things. Listen, let's keep it real. There's a lot of cautious words being said. A lot of people concerned about where this may lead us. How we
He spoke about his faith.
take in
openly.
people's lives and the
He was
importance of those
unapologetic about
lives.
his views.
The sad
I
case of
think
this
what's been said
country
about
is this is
Charlie
not the
having his
beginning
hand
of
on
this.
the finger on the pulse of the,
This is
of the
not
MAGA
where this
base is
started.
true.
This is not where
But
it's
what's
going
also
to
true
end.
is that he was
Um,
enormously influential in
so
that when an issue was
as
emerging,
people
when
have been
something
dying,
was happening and people were
we've had this
sorting out their own
senselessness
views on it.
towards
How
it.
should I
We've
feel
had
about
this
this? Charlie was one of the first people they
desensitization to
turned
it.
to
We
to
just
see
don't really care
where's Charlie going to
anymore.
be on this issue.
And in fact, we've
how's he
had folks
processing it? How's
celebrate
he
people
analyzing it?
dying
And how does
that
he think the
apparently
young
aren't
conservative
important.
should view whatever the
But
issue
to
happened
everyone
to
who
be? So
dies, they're
it wasn't
important
that
to
just
someone.
he was just reflecting people.
So
He
they have
was
Scott
leading
Jennings on to
people.
talk
He
about
was
how important Charlie
influencing
Kirk was
people.
to Scott
When
Jennings.
he did
I
something, when he
believe
said
Scott
something, when
Jennings
he
and
took a
Charlie
stand
Kirk
on
was
an issue,
important to him. I just
you
wish
can bet that people would move.
the people who died
And
and then
so
people like Scott Jennings and Charlie Kirk
what
laughed
he
at
did
them
to
dying,
organize these young
understood
kids
that they were also
to
important
bring
to other people
conservative
that they
values
don't know.
and views into public spaces that aren't
It's
normally
a
thought of as
very
places
simple
where conservatives
equation.
would gather
And so some people are
was
optimistic and like maybe
enormously
this will be a wake
courageous.
up call to our country to finally see the importance in
It
other
took a lot of
people's
damn
lives.
guts to do it.
I don't know.
And
I talked to
we'll never
John a
forget
lot
Charlie
on TDR about this, and I'm always the
for
pessimist,
being
and he
that
has
next
his
generation
optimistic
of
hope for things that could
conservative
potentially
leader
change and things getting better.
rallying people
But the problem is
when
there's no
you might
empathy
not
in
have thought
this
it was
world.
cool to do so,
There's no empathy in this country.
but he did it
We
anyway.
have this approach to
And he made it
things that
cool.
just go, well,
And he made it.
moving
And he made
on.
it. Honestly,
We, have
Charlie Kirk was a
survivors
destination
of
for
child
a
sex
lot of young
traffickers go
conservatives.
and
And
plead their case in front of cameras for
Well,
an
we're
hour
gonna
and a
miss him.
half. And
Scott,
the
I mean, one
important
thing,
people in
it's
this
worth
country
just
go,
noting how
whatever.
young
We've lost people.
he was. I mean, he
Virginia
started this
Giuffre died
organization
this
back
year
in
as
2012.
a
He was
direct result
18
of
years
what is it
old.
she went
Yeah.
through.
He's 31
And I don't know
today.
how many people had
I mean,
wall-to-wall
even
coverage about it.
I think the
I
Trump
wish
people at
they
the
did.
beginning
I'm
sort of
okay
raised an
with them
eyebrow. They
having
thought,
wall-to-wall
this
coverage
kid,
about Charlie
like, what does
Kirk.
he
He was
know?
influential. A lot of
And
people
he
knew him.
showed them all
get
that,
that.
he actually had what you
I
are
wish this
talking
wasn't
about.
an
He had
illustration
something.
he
of this
did. He had a
hierarchy of
charisma
the
and he
importance of
had
different people's
an ability
lives.
to make politics
So
engaging
when you see people say
for that
horrific
audience.
things about this, when you see
He
people
took something
celebrate
that
this,
some young people might find to be
understand it's because
boring or out of
they
reach,
felt the pain
and he
of
made it
being
relevant
ridiculed when people they know
and
and
interesting
love
for them.
died.
And
When
once
there's a
he
school
had them,
shooting and
and once they
Uvalde,
were
I was
involved,
on camera, man. I was bawling
um,
about that.
he
I
had
didn't know
then this
any of
ability
those
to
kids,
motivate them to do
but I
something
saw
with
their
that. If
parents,
you've ever been
and
to
I
one of these
understood what that
Turning
would feel
Point
like.
USA rallies, I went to the one
And
in
I saw
Tampa
people that were going,
just a few weeks ago,
whatever.
and I was honored. He
That
invited
was
me to speak
years
there. It was the
ago.
first time I had done so.
Why is it
And
that
it's just
this is the moment when that
arena
changes?
full of young
Charlie Kirk
people.
was a
Some are
kid
in
in elementary
college, some are
school
in high
once too,
school, you know,
and
some are just
those
young adults.
kids were in elementary
And
school, and when you
their
saw Superman
enthusiasm
coffins
and
being
zeal
carted out and people
for the future of our
personalizing their
country
coffins
and how
the
you
size
change
of
it for the
children,
better,
that was too
and
much for me.
and how they arrived at that was so
And
inspiring.
it's
The way they
sad there wasn't
arrived at it
enough
was
people where that wasn't too much
because
for
they were
them.
inspired by
Where
someone who
instead
knew
they
how to
went
use his
back to
voice,
NRA
knew how to
donors, and they
engage in
talked
debate and
about
political rhetoric.
how much more money they could make off of this event.
What he was doing was the opposite
And
of
for
what's
people who
happened to
had
Charlie.
empty promises
You know,
of
what's
wanting to do
happened to him
something
is
about it.
violent.
Yeah, on the Democratic side too.
But he was using his
We have to
words
do something about this. Help me
and his
raise money so we
speech,
can get elected.
which
And
is
then
our
they
first
still
protected
don't
freedom in this
dive into
country.
the
And
fight.
so we're going to miss Charlie, and we pray for his wife
I
and those
just
babies.
wish we cared about other
He leaves
people's
behind a young
lives.
family. You know,
So
people
when
like this
George
who
Floyd gets
exist in the
kneeled onto
public
his
sphere.
neck,
We know them as
you know,
public actors,
when
and we see them in
Sandra
front of
Bland gets
crowds, and we see them
murdered,
on TV, and we
and
hear
then
them
there's
on
a
the
big
radio.
movement over it, and it gets
But they
whittled
go home at
down
night
to
too,
all
and
of
they open a
these
front
angry
door,
people are rioting in the
and they hug a wife,
streets, and for
and they
what?
hug
For
children,
people's lives.
and they put them down, and they oversee the toothbrushing and everything, just like the rest
And
of
enough
us. And
people
so
said that wasn't enough.
there's
for
that
a
side
reason,
of
and they
them
came
that
up
we
with
don't
other
often think about, but
excuses.
Charlie was doing that
So,
too. So I just think in
I
moments
hope
like
that's
this,
the
it's
lesson
easy to
that could be
analyze the
learned. I
politics,
doubt
but
that it will.
you know, there was Charlie the
We're
husband and Charlie the
a
father, and
And
he'll be missed forever.
nation.
since we've
We
just
always
learned
have
of this, I
been.
think it's absolutely
People get
appropriate that we're
murdered
talking
throughout our
about
history
Charlie
in horrific
Kirk, the
ways.
man.
And every time it happens,
But Scott,
many
how
people
do you
laughing
think
about it.
we can
If you deny
go
that,
on
you haven't
from this in a
been
way
paying attention to
that
reality.
doesn't get
So we're
uglier
going to see
and
people
uglier?
laughing about this. And it's the same
Well, I don't
as people
know.
laughing about anyone
I mean, we
else
all
that
start
they
to ask
didn't
these
like
questions in
that
the
got
aftermath
murdered.
of something. We had a lot of these conversations after President Trump
And
was
what
nearly
makes people
assassinated.
so mad after those murders happen is
We
that
had a
sometimes
presidential
the
election.
murderer
The people voted.
walks away
That's sort of the
simply because he's
the
rich
beauty
and
of
connected,
America. We've always endured
or
and
because
persevered through
he's
even
on the
dark
right side of the
moments like
political
this
aisle.
one. You know, I think there are a lot of people, though, who have given up on politics and have
You're not gonna see
turned
much of my
their hearts
opinion about this. I'm
to violence.
just seeing the
And
mass
one of the
society.
legacies of Charlie, in my opinion, is that politics is good. Politics is speaking to each other. Politics is
he too loud? I've been looking at y'all's comments. Sorry, I had him really low. Sorry about that. I muted him completely. I thought I just had him low. I hope you guys can hear me. I'm up now. I'm real up here now. Can you guys hear me better? It's crazy that the thing being so low had that. So let me know if you guys can hear me now. I know I'm a little bit behind now on what that was. I dropped the feed, but it was really low. Yes, Chad began. Charlie Kirk apparently is. I mean, according to Donald Trump, he posted that he's dead. Apparently was shot in the neck. If you guys didn't see or hear the original news reports, I apologize for having that sound up a little bit. But it's just frustrating, man. It's frustrating. The gist of, if you guys couldn't hear anything I was saying, the gist is we don't value life here. And this is another apparent version of that, but there's something different about this one when we haven't valued life for a very long time. We watch people die on camera slowly. You know, we see children get carted out of schools. We see images of schools, classrooms full of blood. And we hear stories of teachers covering their students and then dying because of it. And I wish it was wall-to-wall coverage so that we could convince enough people that are in positions of power to do something different to prevent those things from happening and to care about it. And then when you talk about, oh, look what's going on in Chicago, look what's going on in Baltimore. Did you know 7 people were shot over the weekend? 7 people's families and friends were very upset over those weekends. as you flippantly talk about those as a reason for you to then create more violence. That's the connection I don't think we're making. I just don't think so. And I don't think that's a political partisan statement, because there's plenty of people that are Democratic, left-leaning thinkers that don't care, bro. Or when they see this, they go, we have to do this and make sure we think only about this and forget that there's a life behind that. I know people who've had family members killed, died early. I lost a brother early. It's but you know, we don't value life here. We just don't do it. It's not a part of us making as much money as possible. It just isn't. So this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen next. There's going to be laws put in place that'll potentially be slanted one way or another. There's going to be a heightened sense of security. You're going to get a huge uptick in people wanting to go buy more guns. I mean, I said this months ago. You might get some proclamations and bills putting forward that may limit people's guns rights, because now it's important enough. Yeah. So, you know, there's people that are mourning that actually knew Charlie Kirk, his family, as a reason for that, because they know him, they loved him. I just wish we paid attention to other folks too. That's all. Let's listen to more of what people are talking about on CNN's. They're covering this.
Pennsylvania last year, we have seen an uptick of violence creeping into our politics in a totally unacceptable way. We can't stand.
He reminded me of something here. This guy talking about the uptick of violence in our politics, and it's been creeping in. I believe it was June. It was this summer. 2 Minnesota lawmakers were shot. One died along with her husband and the family dog, was shot in their homes. There was an attempted murder on another one. There was plans for more of this to happen. And sometimes a tone could have been set there. Those were, if we're going to start putting this hierarchy on people, those were quote unquote important people. They just happened to be Democratic representatives of the state. And we didn't get much of a wall-to-wall coverage. We didn't get much of a cross bipartisan sympathy tour. We didn't even get people saying, maybe we have to tell others to reel in this rhetoric. We got our president telling them that Tim Walz is a horrible person and that he might call him. I just talked about that this morning on the live stream. I just talked about that. And I think it's crazy that after that happened, we went, that's Trump being Trump. So when we keep shrugging things off, we don't know the numbers of people that aren't shrugging it off and are building up this anger and feel like their backs are against the wall and are concerned that because of policies and shrugging off and this heightened sense of kill or be killed, that they're going to be next, so they go first. That's the state of it, man. They're a commercial right now. Oh, they're still staying with the breaking news. That's where we are. Always going to Jig Tapper. Maybe they'll show what happened.
Barker, Trump ally, conservative activist, founder of Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, only 31 years old, has been killed after being shot in the neck in an apparent assassination. Kirk was speaking at an event at a university in Utah. He leaves behind a widow, Erica, and 2 young children. President Trump, moments ago on Truth Social, posted, quote, "The great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead. No one understood or had the heart of the youth in the United States of America better than Charlie. He was loved and admired by all, especially me, and now he is no longer with us. Melania and my sympathies go out to his beautiful wife, Erica, and family. Charlie, we love you," unquote. The shooting happened at Utah Valley University, which is about 40 miles south of Salt Lake City. Kirk was kicking off a 14-stop campus tour with Turning Points USA, which is focused on young conservatives and especially university campuses. We are getting some new video of police arriving at the scene. A suspect is not in custody, according to a law enforcement source. The video we're about to show you appears to show the moment Kirk was shot in the neck. It happened shortly after he answered a question about mass shooters in America and how many of them are transgender. We want to warn viewers that the video we're about to show you, it's disturbing. We freeze it when you hear the shot, although the audio keeps running.
Do you know how many transgender Americans have been mass shooters over the last 10 years?
Too many.
Okay. Okay, now 5 is a lot, right? I'm gonna give you some credit. Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
Counting or not counting gang violence?
Great.
Local reporters who witnessed the shooting tell CNN that they heard a gunshot and, quote, then you see Charlie go limp. His neck kind of turned and we saw blood immediately. It felt like so much blood came out of his neck immediately, unquote. Video of Charlie Kirk before the shooting shows him wearing a white T-shirt with the word freedom on it, throwing 47 and Make America Great Again hats to a massive, energetic crowd. CNN Chief Law Enforcement and Intelligence Analyst John Miller and former Boston Police Commissioner Ed Davis now join us to talk about this. And John, a law enforcement source, says that there is not a suspect in custody. Tell us about how this investigation is going to commence.
Well, and that's official from the university, that the reports that they gave out earlier about a suspect in custody, and we saw the video of an individual who was taken into custody, handcuffed, and led away. But what they're saying now is that person is not believed to be the shooter and is likely not in custody. This apparently is someone who got pointed out by someone in the crowd, and we don't know what the story is behind that. But the key is there is no suspect in custody. So let's use that for framing right now. What we have is a premeditated, apparently planned assassination of Charlie Kirk, where the suspect appears to be at large. What we know from law enforcement and the university on the scene is they believe the shot was fired from a campus building, and the estimate that they gave in their statement was perhaps 200 yards away, which puts that really even further than the shot we saw in the attempted assassination of President Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, going back to the campaign. So this is suggestive of someone who scoped out the right place, brought a rifle that had the correct distance and optics to make a shot like that from that far away, and a single shot with the kind of accuracy that resulted in taking Charlie Kirk's life. So it appears not to be a spontaneous event, but something planned. Now, there's a backdrop to that, which is this event was gathering steam as controversial. 6,000 students and faculty and community members had signed a petition against Charlie Kirk speaking at the school. 1,000 or more had signed one in favor. But the university came down on the controversy by saying, we are here to exchange ideas and to be open for any speaker. And if you are opposed to that, you know, your options are don't go to the talk with an open mind, or invite a speaker that shares your views. So this was something that would have attracted the kind of attention that if someone had this in mind, it would have given them perhaps the time to plan. So where do we go from here? That means we have to answer one question now that we know there's not a suspect in custody. Is there a weapon recovered? What can that weapon tell us? The serial number may take us to where it was last sold, at least commercially, and a record that may tell us who the owner of that weapon was. If a shell casing was recovered, it may tell us whether that weapon has turned up in any other shootings where evidence was recovered by police. but we haven't been told whether a weapon was recovered yet.
So as you guys are getting more of the details, I want to run through some of those details that I hadn't heard. There was a different angle than the original one that I saw, was much more up close, and CNN froze it before the most gruesome parts of it were revealed. But the question and answer, which I also didn't hear what he was talking about originally. I heard him say something about gun, and then right before that, it all went down. Where ironically, the question and answer, Charlie Kirk does these prove me wrong things where they sit there and, you have an argument with a random person, and we have entertainment from a non-debate because no one's being convinced of anything at these debates. It's just an argument for promotional purposes. I never liked political debates that weren't having to do with candidates for any public office. It just doesn't make any sense. What are people debating for? So that one side of the football team can be rooting against the other side of the other football team. That's all it is. No one at these debates goes, oh man, I hadn't thought about it that way. I'm going to change my mind. So because of that, and because of the flippant nature of the way he was answering questions, talking about trans shooters and gang violence, that's when everything went sideways. So I just don't see the purpose of these. It's self-promotion. It's there to stick it to the other side. That's the only purpose. I don't understand it. But anyways, as I mentioned, if you guys are jumping in, as I mentioned earlier, people that now what's left is to wonder what happens next. I'm seeing some people saying on right-wing blogs and talkers that, oh my God, now the war is on. I've been saying this for months. The violence in this country is not just now starting here. It's just a prominent of enough figure for people to then say, finally, I'm gonna grab my guns and let's have some shootings in the streets in places that weren't already happening in the streets, because we have shootings in the streets in America, and people who want to see that go away kept getting talked down and saying that they want to take people's guns. I just wonder now what the folks in charge will be saying about taking people's guns. We're a selfish creation of humans here. People start feeling the effects of what it is that we've done to ourselves when it finally happens close enough to home. It's happened close enough to home with countless Americans. I've lost people to gun violence. I have many friends who've lost people to gun violence, and it's based off of nothing most times. So in this particular instance, what's this going to be spun as? We see victims, we see family members of victims that get used as political props. They get put at conventions that then get their story told, that then have laws get passed with their name attached to it, and none of it changes. What it goes to is demonizing a particular group so that there can be some kind of political expediency for your points to get used off of someone else's death. We've minimized people's lives to an extreme degree here, and people are getting desperate. So in a place that's chocked full of all the guns that it's chocked full of, this is where we are. And it's been a powder keg, and it's been dangerous for a long time. We just convinced enough people that the only dangerous people are the ones that are unlike you. And I also hadn't heard that the apparent or potential shooter has not been apprehended. At first, they said it was apprehended. It looked like an older white gentleman who was on his knees. Apparently, they caught up with someone, but I guess from these reports on CNN now, that wasn't the guy, and they're still looking for him. Yeah. So that's where we are now. Let's see what some of the analysis continues to go with.
Crimes across the country. So there's a lot of technical work that has to be done here, but it's extremely troubling that this guy is in the wind and he's heavily armed and obviously experienced. This is not a lucky shot. This is not somebody that just picked up a gun for the first time. This is experience.
Yeah, I mean, 200 yards away, that's somebody who has fired guns before. Ed, before you go, what do you make of what appears to be yet another act of political violence in America? We've seen an alarming, it seems like it anyway, an alarming rise in incidents like this.
Right, Jake. It's not the country I grew up in. It's extremely troubling. I think the rhetoric is cranked up on both sides of the aisle, and leadership needs to step it down so that people who
apologies to Ed Davis. This is the country you grew up in. But except when you grew up in this country, people like Charlie Kirk weren't getting publicly shot like this. Other people that were less important were getting shot over political differences. If you want to keep calling societal problems political differences, we've seen countless videos of people getting shot on camera. They're just not important to the rest of us. We call them criminals. We say, well, what were they doing at the time? Maybe they shouldn't have spoken to the officer that way. We haven't valued people's lives for a very long time. Sadly, I think it's going to get worse because we're this vengeance society.
One was the massive quantity of blood that issued forth from the wound immediately, and also the fact that Mr. Kirk immediately, slumped over, suggesting perhaps that the bullet also perhaps hit his spinal cord. The neck contains two large blood vessels on either side: the carotid artery, which takes blood up to the brain, and the internal jugular vein that brings blood back from the head. And the head gets a tremendous amount of cardiac output because the brain is so key. So with a wound that size, you can lose a tremendous volume of blood very quickly. You can lose a liter or 2 liters a minute of blood. And all of the initial attempts to try and salvage the life of Mr. Kirk would have been focused on trying to contain, the bleeding, put packing into the wound, hold pressure on the wound until he could get to a trauma center and have more definitive therapy. It sounds like he might have they might have tried a surgical intervention, and he might have held on for as long as he did because he was only 31 years old. But the massive amount of blood coming forth suggests that his internal jugular and or his carotid were basically blown apart by the impact. And there are other crucial structures there. The airway sits right in that area. The esophagus rides to the left in the neck. And these structures are, besides their usual function, injury to them can be very difficult to fix. But the initial catastrophic event is the massive amount of blood loss.
And that is a way a lot of soldiers, service members die on the battlefield, no matter how it's depicted in films or television. It's honestly, it can be like a leg wound, and your femoral artery you just lose too much blood too quickly.
Right. So I don't know what type of trauma center he was taken to. There are various levels, from comprehensive 24/7 trauma centers to other places where what they would try and do is stabilize and then transfer. But most places that see trauma patients will have basic equipment like trauma bandages, which are bandages coated with a kind of powder that promotes clotting. And what the team in the emergency department, or maybe even in the ambulance, would have tried to do is pack some of this trauma packing, into the wound and try and contain some of the blood. Upon arrival to the hospital, Mr. Kirk would have been in a major trauma center, would have been met by a trauma team with trauma surgeons, anesthesiologists, nurses, PAs, and then they would have.
Yeah, understood. They went through all the processes of what has happened. I went looking up for more of the video because CNN ran a version that froze it right before he was shot, as he was arguing with someone about guns. So what we've now got is all over the internet for anyone to see the videos of Charlie Kirk being murdered. I don't know when our limit is going to be reached, right? I said it for years. I really wished. You know what was really bad? I had this conversation in a production meeting years ago when we were covering police brutality. And I just had a moment where I said, you know what I'm tired of seeing? I'm tired of seeing Black people be murdered on camera. And the fact that it's transitioned over into Black folks feeling like we have to illustrate and show you and project and present people that look like me being murdered on camera to convince you to start caring about it, I'm tired. It's traumatic. So for people who knew Charlie Kirk, this is very traumatic to watch. And for people that that have known folks that are murdered on camera by law enforcement or by mass shooters, or by people who wear GoPros and go into churches and shoot up elderly Black folks, or go into grocery stores and start shooting. For people who witnessed it, it's traumatic. I just wish more people were traumatized by it enough to want to do things to stop seeing it happen. But instead, those people get used as pawns for the next political win in a debate, which sadly he was having right in the middle of this. I'm just curious what you guys are saying. I'm looking in here and there. But, you know, and I'm seeing posts about things that Charlie Kirk has said in the past about people being murdered, about gun violence, and how it's necessary. But, you know, folks who say horrible things about him now are in the wrong, and he was in the wrong as well. Was he? What was he not? Some of the folks that are saying bad things about him right now, they're also going to die. You know that. That's what happens. You know, tons of people get killed all the time in this country because we're chocked full of these. Just know he's, you know, he was a human being like other folks are human beings that we need to start caring about. So it has to be a point when we're going to go ahead and put down that whole vengeance streak. And maybe want to finally have this stop. I don't know. What do y'all think? I mean, am I crazy? This has been very tiring for a very long time. So we'll see what Donald Trump says next. We'll see what our congressmen and senators say next. We'll see what our governors say next. We'll see what the NRA says next. Because I remember laughter at these events. I remember celebrations. I remember using these stats as a tool to then talk about how you want to oppress more people. I remember it. I think there was even an article that was talking about how after that last shooter, I believe Minnesota, the trans shooter, how there's been now two in the past two or 3 years, that we need to take guns away from specifically trans people. I remember RFK Jr. talking about how drugs that or drugs that people take in their transition, that attributes to it, and got mixed up and confused also with antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications because he didn't know what he was talking about. All that stuff is dangerous to talk about. Because maybe someone's out on the streets and says, yo, man, if anybody who's on these antidepressants is dangerous to me, we have to start understanding the gravity of what it is that we say in positions of power, as elected leaders, as people that are heads of departments and agencies. It eventually gets to everyone. That's how viruses work, despite what RFK Jr. wants to tell you. And we have this virus of not caring about people's lives and everyone having 5 guns. I wonder what happens then. There is. Let's see what they're saying.
That's exactly what he was doing this afternoon in the courtyard there at the university. He was taking on questions from people who disagreed with him. I remember getting an invitation from him once to debate with him back in 2021. I looked it up. I want to read his words because we should hear from him in his own words. He said, "I'm trying to be proactive about encouraging dialogue between people who disagree." And that's what happened today at the university. There were protesters holding signs saying Charlie Kirk is a liar, but there were hundreds of fans gathered around him, around that tent, and around his security. So this is a huge loss for Turning Point USA. As he recently said to a Utah newspaper just a few days ago, quote, We want to be an institution in this country that is as well known and as powerful as the New York Times, Harvard, and tech companies. And we believe we are creating that. That's what Kirk was trying to build. And, you know, Jake, his wife of 4 years, Erica, she tweeted a prayer today before the shooting. She tweeted Psalm 46:1. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. And we certainly have trouble today. We have trouble in this democracy when people try to solve with weapons rather than words, Jake.
Yeah, and Charlie and Erica had two young kids together. Their father's gone.
Kids.
Whatever people think about Charlie Kirk's politics, those little kids are denied a father.
Let's stop calling it the politics. I'm so tired of it. Let's not make this political. This is not political. This is societal. It's just our politicians control our society, and our society is led around by politicians who actually are paid off by other folks to lead them around to whatever direction they need them to be led around to continue to get paid and to continue to be in their positions of power and still tell us what they want the people who pay them to believe. It's not political. Politicians control it, though. They've made it political. Our society is what the problem is. But they'll say that as they continue to let this flow right through. Let's see when the policies may come. Is this administration now going to start taking away the guns? I mean, there's been 17 to 20 other things that they said that they feel their political opponents would do that they've decided to start doing. So as the fear ripples through the people who feel like they could never be touched, they respond. There's been fear rippling through people who don't matter to them for decades, for the entirety of this country. People have been afraid of folks coming for them because of the situations they're in, because of who they are. And because of who they are is not important, that's what makes it so much more dangerous to live in this country. As long as you're known, you're protected. So, by the way, just in case, we hadn't seen this, let me show you guys this. And make sure it gets going. But again, this is September 10th, 2025. Charlie Kirk got shot. I'm waiting for this to load up because there's lots happening today, all at the exact same time. That one's not going to work. Maybe this one will. Bear with me. I'm doing this on the fly. So this was at Utah Valley University or college. I'm not sure where Charlie Kirk, the situation went down. I want to show you what happened. Come on. In Denver. Hold on. Pause. Here we go. I just want you guys to see this really fast, just so we can get a full scope of what is this going on in the country. And as we talk about wall-to-wall news coverage of Charlie Kirk's murder in Utah, this is what's happened with people that we don't.
This is not good news. This is difficult news to sort of digest, particularly for the community of Evergreen, particularly for the county of Jefferson County, and quite frankly for the state, for the country. Another shooting at a school in Colorado today. 3 critical victims, 2 of which we believe to be students. They're taken away to the scene, to St. Anthony's, and they are actively being cared for. You can imagine, I've talked to lots of doctors in these situations where they get that rush of patients, and 3 patients is still a lot of patients at one time. And there's that mad rush to sort of take care of those patients, oftentimes with these very critical injuries, and make sure that they can survive. So you can imagine there is a lot of work that's taking place at St. Anthony's at this moment right now.
That's what's going on in Colorado right now. 3 more students in critical conditions because of another school shooting. So let's ask ourselves this question. If Charlie Kirk wasn't the bigger name who got killed today due to a shooting in the United States of America, what would we be saying? Well, I mean, first off, some people would have to talk about it. I feel like it's obviously now in the background of coverage. But if that's the only well-known shooting that happened today, what would the response be from people like Donald Trump? What would be the response from Democrats in Congress and in the Senate? What would be the response from the NRA? What would be the response from that school? What would we say about more people who have the same position in their life here on this earth that Charlie Kirk had, that just got shot in that school today? What would we say about them? What have we said about them for decades? What have we been saying? Have they been used as another position to say, you know what, our society's just sick and I don't know what we're going to do about it? We're not going to do nothing about it. Maybe we should reinforce the doors on schools. Maybe we should put military guys at the doors of every school in America. Maybe we should arm the teachers. Maybe students should be allowed to start bringing guns, but only if they get A's. There's all of these ridiculous points of views and all these things we say that none of them really mean what they're saying because they don't care. We care about this one. So since enough people care about this one, now it's somber coverage, and I can't believe where our country has gone. Isn't it weird that our country was already here?
He was an integral part of the campaign of getting Trump elected and of the people who are currently in positions of power. And that's why you're seeing such a sadness and a disbelief from so many people close to the president. And when it comes to talking strictly about his influence and his power within Washington, I mean, one of the things to keep in mind here is that this is somebody who had a direct line to President Trump, who could voice his objections to President Trump at times, could voice what he thought was important and not being covered enough by the administration. He spoke to many, if not all, of the cabinet secretaries directly. He had a finger on the pulse of the MAGA movement, even more so than some people who are here in Washington who got government positions. If you look at the crowd that had gathered around Kirk, that was just one example of the kind of crowds that Kirk would draw. He was truly a movement leader, as we've heard. He would bring thousands and thousands of people together. And that was why he was so critical beyond just the personal to the campaign, to President Trump. He was the one who really crossed him over the finish line with many of these young voters, reaching people who had never cast a ballot before, which we know was a huge part of President Trump's strategy. So there are a lot of different levels of all of this, the influence, the power, the connection to the base, but also the family and the relationships that Charlie Kirk had built with all of the Trumps. We have seen the children responding each individually about their relationships with Charlie Kirk, saying to pray for him and his family. Again, he was a fixture here in Washington, even though he doesn't live here, because he was constantly coming in to sit for the swearing-ins of various officials, because those officials were the people he was close to. So this is a great loss for this White House, not just for the MAGA movement, but even personally for the people who are inside the building there.
Yeah. It's tough. And I should note also, even if there are people watching right now who are only kind of peripherally, or maybe even not even aware of who Charlie Kirk was, ask your kids, ask your grandkids, even if they're not MAGA, if they're on phones, they know who Charlie Kirk is. Teenagers, people in their 20s, they know who Charlie Kirk is. Even if they disagree with him, they know who he is. He really was a voice for this young generation. Again, even if they didn't agree with him. Kristen Holmes, stick around. I want to bring in David Urban now, former Trump campaign advisor. David, I'm sorry to be talking to you under these conditions.
So yeah, it continues. Yeah, I'm not sure what else really to say. It's what it is. We'll see where this goes next. I guess I have a few more things to toss out and get going today. I just want to jump in and talk about it. I've been on here long enough. For anybody who's jumping in now, apologies for you missing some of the stuff that's happening, but there's the coverage, there's the concern, there's now our society in peril. Let's see what happens next. I'm going to see you guys tomorrow for another Thursday watch party. We jump on at noon. For all these guys that are here now, we run through tons of stories every day. Well, not tons, but 3 to 4. But still, I think it's different angles that a lot of folks don't see or think about. I do it for an hour. We go straight into TDR. So if you're just not seeing that I do this stuff, I do it every day. It's noon Eastern, 9 o'clock on the West. I'm going to see you guys tomorrow. If something else crazy happens today, I'll be back on today.